Can you
Yes.
confirm that for me, Mark? Great. Okay, yeah, so thank you everybody for bearing with me. It's one of those typical typical challenges of doing any sort of live presentation. You never know what curveballs the Internet's going to throw at you. Thanks very much again. My name is Craig Todd. I'm with a company called Indicee. Indicee is a provider of business intelligence and analytics. Most of us go way, way back to the very, very early days of reporting and business intelligence. I and a lot of the originators of Indicee were part of some of the original members of the Crystal team, for those of you who have ever heard of Crystal Reports. So that was a little company that was founded up in Vancouver in Canada, going on about 25 years ago. Grew from a little garage software-based operation to really a multi-billion-dollar enterprise software company, and I was fortunate enough to be part of that for many, many years. So if we talk about my history in high tech, has been predominantly in business intelligence and in CRM. When Mark came to us and started talking about the types of things that they were doing at Utribo, one of the things I recognized from my time in the CRM industry was that recording phone calls is something that was incredibly challenging to get sales reps to do, because there were multiple different clicks involved. You had to look things up. You had to take the time to make the phone call, stop when you were done, put all your information in. And so finding out that this was something that they did extremely well, and more importantly, they're looking for analytics to understand the impact of how this fits with sales. It really came to the heart of what we do at Indicee, and that is we provide analytics for just about anybody and anything. But more importantly, we have a suite of analytics packages for Salesforce. And what we've been doing for the last couple of years with Salesforce was working with them to analyze the impact of social business practices, and specifically Salesforce Chatter, on all the different aspects of their business, from simple things like adoption. Who is using the Chatter product? What is the overall adoption metrics for the organization as a whole? Right down to how does that stuff sort of impact sales? How is the collaboration on my sales opportunities having a positive impact on how we do our business? And so, just to give you an idea of some of the things, or some of the things that we are doing and are planning on doing, I wanted to show you, at least to start with, an out-of-the-box application and give you an idea of how I work with Mark to produce the dashboard that I'm going to show you. So I actually went to the App Exchange, and I installed our product. So this is Indicee Analytics for Salesforce Chatter, in particular Indicee Analytics for Sales. And it allows us to tap into virtually any of the objects in Salesforce, whether they are standard objects or custom objects, to be able to connect all the data and be able to bring it into what we call an Indicee Analytics library. And this allows us to perform a wide variety of complex analytics, and more importantly, complex data joins on information. One of the things that most people are challenged with is trying to make sense of multiple different types of objects in Salesforce. So being able to create reports that would list out really the impact of something like sales phone calls on opportunities, and relate them to cases, bring in accounts, bring in contacts, bring in users, organize that by sales territory, and maybe add some social interaction with respect to Chatter, and even bring in all the meetings. To be able to put all of this stuff together and try and build it into one kind of report or one kind of package with the complex architecture of the data behind it is really, really challenging to do in the built-in reporting technologies that come with Salesforce. Being an analytics technology, one of the things that we do exceptionally well is to be able to analyze or create, make sense out of very, very complex data patterns. So that's what we've done here. There's actually about 35-odd different feeds that come out of Salesforce that make up this package. So here what we're seeing is Chatter's impact on sales. So this is just simple things like people collaborating within the organization, and how many people in the organization have adopted these kinds of practices. What kind of opportunities do we have in the pipe that have Chatter activity on them? What kind of opportunities in the pipe, and whether it's just simple quantities of activities or by sales amount. Are we closing more deals because people are are collaborating and working together. And we're going to answer the same kinds of questions when it comes to things like calls and meetings as well. You know, when we start to analyze these types of things, you know, we also want to understand who are our sales leader. What are the best practices that the people in the organization are using in order to achieve top results? You know, our top producers, are they making more calls than everybody else? Are the top producers having more meetings than everybody else? Are the top producers generating more email traffic and activity than everybody else? And, you know, I think we all kind of know that the answer to that is probably. You know, historically speaking, I think we probably know that, but you need to be able to measure these things. And so what I did was actually took our software, and this is my demonstration system. I'm going to flip over for a moment, and I'm going to log into Indicee. And this is, now I'm working directly with Mark's data in Utribo and working directly with the Utribo data here to look at sales activities and their impact on our sales system. So I have a nice headline running across the top that shows me how many ops are open, how many close, how many we win, you know, what's our win-loss ratio, what's our average order value, what's our average days to close, things like that. So these are great sort of baseline metrics that we can use when analyzing sales, and I always like to keep them, you know, first and foremost in my head as I'm doing these types of things. But I also want to be able to do things like, you know, if we start in the top left corner, what are the number, you know, how do we break these down into different kind of buckets and analyze where we should be spending our time? So calls by deal size is a great way to look at this sort of thing. So I've broken these down into deals that range from, you know, no amount. So here's a great red flag. I should probably get into my system and put some amounts on my opportunities. We have actually 30 of them that don't have any amounts. We want to be able to adjust those. But let's look at, you know, ops between 10,000 and 100,000. We've got 13 in the pipe. Ops over 100K, we've got 20 in the pipe. And look where the bulk of our call time and our tasks are being spent. So these are call units, right? Call units are really, really important. It's a way of normalizing our activity, not by number of calls really, but the amount of impact they have. And if we break down the phone call, the time we spend on the phone, into these ideas of call units, a standard unit of measurement across calls, because you know what, a 5-second call can have just as much impact to our business as a 5-minute call or a 10-minute call. It really is what you're getting out of it. So that's why we break them down and normalize them into these call units. So I can see we're spending the bulk of our time really here on the ops that are over 100K. They do make up the bulk of our pipeline, so I think that's really important to be able to recognize. If we start looking down, what's the impact on close probability? Where are we at in that cycle? And if we get into the 90 to 100% close rate, we can see nicely that's where the bulk of our ops are in terms of one particular bucket. But that's also where the bulk of the actual task activity and call unit time is being recorded in there. Important numbers to point out. I mean, that it's showing us that the ops that are closing are the ones with the high rates of activity on them. And we can see where they break down into stage as well. You know, at what part of our pipe do we have the most activity? And not surprisingly, it's a negotiation and review, right? You know, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth to get that deal done, to get the stage closed. So we know this stuff is really, really important to us. So these are the types of metrics we want to be able to understand and analyze. And the ones I built so far are, you know, reasonably simple, but they're things that are definitely hard to get at if you don't have this integration, and more importantly, if you don't have the data. And like most sales organizations, getting salespeople to spend the time to put this stuff in can be challenging. And we want to make it fast and easy. If we can make it fast and easy, we'll do it every time. And if we can do it every time, we create great habits. We create an environment for success. And we can see simply by looking at, you know, where people are spending their time and the success rates associated with that, we can absolutely see how these things are working. The nice thing about these analytics as well is, you know, if we look down in the bottom right-hand corner, call units per rep, all of this is linked directly to Salesforce. And so when I go and you know, punch these numbers in or click on these links, that drives me right into the records within my Salesforce system. And I'll flip back to my live demo system for just a moment and give you an idea. If I were to go in and say click on Ramel here, This actually, because I'm logged into Salesforce, because I have access to this particular Salesforce system, I can actually go in, I can see Romel's details, I can see all the activities that he's up on, I can find out more about him. And the same would be true of specific opportunities. If you wanted to drill to that level of detail and get right down to the op itself, you drill right into the Salesforce records directly from your analytics. All of these things really, really important to be able to help you understand who's using it, how they're using it, and more importantly, what kind of successes they are driving through sales and through their use of the tools that are available to them. If you're making sales, you're making calls, and we want to be able to look at the specific factors that are repeatable. The successful habits of our best workers, our best users, our top producers, who's out there making the calls, who's closing the business, and if we can start to look at, what is, and this is why I break things down too, things like called units by rep. Now it's kind of a fanciful sort of a metric because it's not as literal as we would consider, but if you look at this last column in the bottom right-hand corner here, dollars per call, when we can start to attribute the actual revenues and the close ratios and the close rates to these types of activities, we can look at, I think the thing I like is to be able to go to these people and look at them as our top producers, our water carriers, our early adopters, whoever they might be. But let's glean from them the best practices from using the combination of the technology and their skill set and our product base to be able to fan that out company-wide. If we can do that, then we can increase our overall throughput. We can increase our AOV. We can increase our win rate. And we can reduce our sales cycle overall. So having these types of tools at your fingertips, and more importantly, being able to analyze them. Because if you can't get at the data, if you can't put it in a fashion that's readily accessible, that allows anybody in the organization to be able to understand where they are at a given point in time, or be able to sort of, click on something, and whether it's going and analyzing statistics and dashboards and things that already exist, or even going into our ad hoc tool to be able to sort of quickly do a couple of calculations to get a sense of, where are we at right now, where are we going, I need to find out more about this. If we can give people those tools, we can empower them to take that information into the business, and we can empower them to make better business decisions and move this stuff forward. So that's really the power of analytics. That's when we couple that with the framework that Salesforce provides, and we add into it the information that Utribo brings into the mix and creates an environment, for frankly better participation and adoption of the technology by the user population. Then we have a win-win, and we can put on that a series of analytics that allows people to determine where they're at any given point in time and to move forward. And so with that, I want to sort of stop and pass things back to Mark, and just again, thank you for the time.
Well, thanks, Craig. That was a great presentation. Okay, well, that pretty much wraps up our presentation today. Just to summarize, we've shown you all ways to automatically capture information and perhaps even be a bit more productive in the way that you use Salesforce. And then we showed you how to utilize that data and capture it. Indicee has done a great job of that. Just to wrap up, we're going to be sending out an email with recordings of both sessions, and also with some activities both organizations are doing around Dreamforce. Again, I'd like to thank you for sitting in on the presentation today, and we look forward to speaking with you. One last thing, we are looking for beta testers for Salesamp, and if you're interested, we'll give you an opportunity to give it a try. Look forward to speaking with you soon. Take care.